Yo, what's up everyone, this is ChippySound from Black Tie Gaming doing this collab with Grand Theft Auto about Need for Speed Undercover, a game that is a lot of times regarded as the worst in the Need for Speed series. While the game did have a cult following in recent years, the game still was widely criticized for technical issues, physics, story, and live action cutscenes. But you might be wondering, why does the game have these issues? What happened? Well, judging from its development cycle, Undercover had a very rocky development and had a lot of conceptual changes before release. I thought it would be interesting to cover a video on this troubled and rocky development, so let's just get to it. It's not entirely sure on when Undercover actually started development, however, there are two speculations on when development actually began. Back in 2003, Black Box made several ideas/concepts for the future NFS installments. We don't know which NFS games they already had planned, but it was sure they already planned out Underground 2 and Most Wanted around this time. It's possible they also had a concept for Undercover around this time period, and if that's true, Undercover would have existed since 2003. Although, if this was the case, Undercover would have not been in full development before Most Wanted's release. It's also possible that it started development after Most Wanted and was conceptualized during Carbon's development and was in full development around 3 months before Carbon's release. Undercover started out as a sequel to the original Most Wanted, and from the internal files we could go off that the working title was just Most Wanted 2. Most Wanted 2 most likely was in a playable form sometime during its development, as the folder name for Undercover source code was MW2, which stands for Most Wanted 2. But no concept art or the sort has been leaked or seen from the Most Wanted 2 stage. It looks like the game was Most Wanted 2 for a long time, but that's not assured, and Undercover could have been through tons of concepts that would probably never see the light of day. The dev team wanted the game to have a more serious tone than other NFS games as well. They would not only work on races, but also missions to progress through the game, which would be called jobs in the final game. These jobs would have consisted of stealing cars, evading police, and taking down people. The dev team also wanted to put even more focus on live action cutscenes that were seen in previous Need for Speed installments. In late 2006, EA and Black Box realized Undercover would take more time to develop than expected. Instead of just not releasing any Need for Speed game in 2007, they decided to work on a sort of a filler game. This game would be known as Need for Speed Pro Street. EA and Black Box made a bad move with this decision, especially since they were also working on their new IP, Skate, which at the time already put more stress on the dev team. Black Box made a decision to split the teams in two. One would work on Undercover, while the other team would work on Pro Street. Some important developers did work on both games at the same time, putting a lot of work and pressure on them, which meant they couldn't work on Undercover with their fullest potential. The teams being split would also mean a lot of talent from other dev teams would have not been utilized in Undercover. During a large part of Pro Street's development, Undercover was known as Need for Speed Chase. Not a lot is known about this time period other than that the game was The Chase around mid-2007 and most likely turned into Undercover right after. This is also when live action cutscenes were shot. The only remains from this time period was a cut intro/unreleased teaser featuring a Mitsubishi Lancer Evo X chasing a Porsche 911 down a highway, with the Porsche being taken down in the end. Parts of this intro would be used in the game's trailer and final intro. Here's the full intro/trailer, and an annotation will be shown if you want to skip the intro, but I suggest you watch it. During this time, the dev team saw a major change in their workplace. During the work of previous installments, they were tortured with a strict development cycle. However, in the summer of 2007, EA decided to give Black Box a less strict development cycle. This would be good news for the team, but they were also hit by a lot of bad news. In the summer of 2007, a lot of the core Black Box staff left the company, including the company's co-founder Martin Sykes. He and some of the other core Black Box devs would start the company called United Front Games, who went on to make Sleeping Dogs and Mod Nation Racers. Martin Sykes tragically died in his sleep on Christmas Eve 2007.
What it all boils down to is that without the story, cop chases, and open world of the last two Need for Speed games, Pro Street is just another racing game. Other than a nice online mode on the 360 and PS3, its only truly distinguishing feature is its amount of advertising, which makes an already uninspired game feel even more soulless.
Things were not looking well for Black Box. NFS Pro Street was released to mediocre reviews and very poor sales. Even the development team and EA themselves viewed the game as a failure, but were confident Undercover was going to be a much better game. Need for Speed Undercover was announced to the public in June of 2008. Well, not a lot of info was given out. It was said that it would be a much better game than Pro Street and, trust EA on that one. It also mentioned live action cutscenes and a more serious plot and tone than other Need for Speed titles. In August 2008, a person involved in the marketing team of NFS Undercover leaked a prototype build and spread it on torrent sites and forums. EA did notice this pretty quickly and took a few torrents and forum posts down, but it ultimately kept popping up and EA pretty much just gave up. The person that leaked the build, which again was part of the marketing team, and never saw legal action taken against him/her, however he/she was fired. The last few months of Undercover's development were pretty uneventful, and final touches were put into the game, which mainly were visuals, missions and UI. And then Undercover came out.
There wasn't a whole lot known about Need for Speed Undercover when it was announced, except that it was supposed to include a ton of cinematic flair to tell its story. Taking a page from the American classic that is The Fast and the Furious, an undercover cop is charged with cleaning up the seedier parts of illegal street racing. The game promised an involved story, high-speed highway battles, and insane chases. How could it go wrong? Well, much like Too Fast, Too Furious, a lot went wrong. Need for Speed Undercover is not a good game. It's not even close to a good game. It had the potential to be a good game, but that's about it.
Undercover didn't get a warm reception and was panned even more than its predecessor Pro Street upon release. Some reviewers did give the game an okay score, and small few gave it a positive score. It was widely criticized for its handling, visuals, story, and live action cutscenes. The game's sales were also very underwhelming. The game sold 1.14 million copies in the US, which was 2 million copies less than Carbon's sales and 1 million copies less than Pro Street sales in the US. It sold 5.28 million copies worldwide on all platforms, which is a very, very bad sales figure. It only sold a quarter of Most Wanted sales, which was around 15 million copies. The game was seen as a massive disappointment for both Black Box and the public. Well, I personally feel bad for what Black Box had to go through, and I bet if Pro Street just wasn't developed at the same time as Undercover and less pressure was put onto the company, they would have made something special. I and a lot of people see the potential the Undercover had. I personally think Undercover could have been the best NFS title in the series. Unfortunately, the hard work of Black Box resulted in one of the most panned titles in the series. It could have been very different. Thank you so much for listening. I hope the video was informative. I hope you learned something. And remember to follow me on facebook.com/blacktiegamingofficial. A link will be in the description. And hopefully I'll see you all soon enough.
Everyone, the music gives us the time.